I make videos on romantic issues I have with some women, and I've tried to distance myself from others who talk about this. That's the main reason I don't talk about going my own way or various colors of pills. The N-word started off as a racial slur used against blacks in the United States and has since become a term that, in my opinion, means nothing. When I say that, I'm referring to how some black people call themselves the N-word as a term of endearment, at the same time as some will get offended when called the term by a person who is not black, even if the non-black person was using it as a term of endearment as well. Admittedly, sometimes it is used by non-black people in a derogatory way. This has led some to debate whether black people should own the word and be able to use it while other ethnic groups cannot. I don't believe I should be able to say words other people cannot because of my skin color, so I just don't use it. But I'm mentioning it here to illustrate how a word can mean different things to people that are so varied that you would not be incorrect to become confused on what exactly is its proper usage. I've seen the same thing happen to the I word, with some people calling themselves the word and others using it as an offensive slur against men they wish to speak ill or dismissive of. The I word, according to Wikipedia, means members of an online subculture who define themselves as unable to find a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one. A subculture is a group of people, and I don't congregate with groups online in any capacity. The closest I come to talking to people who identify as I words is if they show up on my stream, and even then, those are people who sought me out as opposed to the other way around. And while I do identify as someone who has had a hard time getting a date, let alone a relationship, I hope people can understand how extreme it is to lump every single man who's ever had trouble getting a date at any point in his life into a group. So when I was rejected for the first time at age 13, was I inducted into a group I'd never heard of? Did I become a member of this group after a certain number of women declined my advances? You see how my entry into supposedly being a member of this group is hinged on the opinions and decisions of other people? But one might ask themselves, if me and a group of people have a similarity of being unable to get a partner, why would I be so adamant against wanting to identify with them? I did a video this summer about how romance dehumanizes men, and one of the points I've made is that you're denied certain courtesies because you're a man. For example, women complain about relationships with men online all the time on every website, and I've never seen anyone say that they are part of groups for simply levying criticism at members of the opposite sex. Oftentimes, I'll see some men conceding the validity of their points. It's only when a man comes online and complains about not getting with a woman that he must automatically be part of a subculture of individuals he has done nothing to affiliate himself with. Another problem with identifying with this group, if you are a man who has had the misfortune of not being able to have your romantic interest reciprocated, is that people assume you want the same things as their stereotypical idea of what a member of that group wants. So there are some people who accuse members of this group of wanting sex from women, the hottest ones possible at that. I've been very annoyed by this weird obsession people have with trying to pretend sex is not readily available for some men with this problem. What I mean is, I live in a state that is right next to Nevada, where prostitution is legal in Las Vegas, and I could travel there to have my supposed sexual desires met over the weekend. For me personally, to have sex is not hinged on talking to random women over the computer or that I might encounter in real life, meaning that when I speak to women who are not prostitutes, evidently I'm looking for something more than a physical connection on a mattress. But for them to assume I'm looking for something more than lying on a bed would be for them to attribute a positive characteristic of wanting to actually like your partner for the person that they are to a person who they are intent on demonizing by asserting that I just want sex like all the other I words, or dehumanizing by lumping me in a group I never joined. So if I identify as an I word, I go from a man who wanted a date and eventually a relationship that led to a family to an angry individual upset that women won't have sex with him. My specific grievances and desires thrown to the wayside. And this is really a shame because I have very specific issues with romantic relationships and why I don't believe pursuing them, and in some cases being in them is worth my time. I concede fairly regularly that not all women are the same, as I wouldn't exist if my mother did the nonsense to my father that has been done to me. But I also assert that too many of them do things that I find antagonistic to what I would like to see out of romance. So just to reference a few things, as a man who had a woman agree to marry him and then renege a few days later after arguing with her mother about an unrelated topic, as a man who had a woman say that she was not good enough for him and still got rejected by this person, and as a man whose first girlfriend was a woman that was nice to him for a month and then during the relationship begged him for money every day until he ended it, it makes a lot of sense as to why I'm pessimistic. I'll always remember the woman who said I was too good for her but still rejected me as the last time I truly thought this would change, because she was asking personal questions and saying some fairly unique things that led me to believe that this time it was different before I found out it was just another cruel joke. Going back to stereotypical ideas, another problem with identifying as an I word is that people make assumptions about your personality. I think it is very ridiculous to pretend to know the personality of someone you've never met, especially since people online often have public personas that are different from how they may act in real life. I've had several users in the past try to claim I lacked confidence in I words or characterized as lacking confidence. I found these claims hilarious because I wouldn't be able to make videos showing my face, which comprised the majority of my content, if I was truly unconfident. In my World Without Heroes 2 stream that I did with my brother a few months back, there was a user who tried to claim that I had too much confidence when I wouldn't follow his worthless advice. I bring this up because self-loathing is tied to lacking confidence or not believing in oneself, and I've never expressed this. I actually believe I would have to loathe myself to want to keep talking to a group of people who deny me what I want, no matter how long we speak or how much they claim to like me. And also, let's pretend I did have self-loathing at times. I have never met a single person, be they male or female, that acts the same way all the time. I'm going to use a recent experience I had as an example of why I despise everything relating to my romantic life. In December, I tried to resume a correspondence I had with a woman from the previous year. This person at every turn said she wanted to speak to me. In spite of this, she did not have phone calls with me after scheduling them to occur when she was free 6 times. And I gradually grew impatient after waiting 2 months for her to schedule another one. And I want to show you 2 screenshots. In the first one, you can see where she admits that I've been patient with her. In the second one, you can see her apologizing for letting me down and admitting that I haven't asked for much. I don't believe it takes 2 months to have a phone call. And even if you're of the opinion that she was telling the truth about wanting to speak to me, it's a fact that she did nothing to progress this supposed want. And this is why I despise everything relating to my romantic life, because I know no matter how many times I prove I did everything I could to move things along with the woman, I'm still crucified for why it doesn't work out. This is also why I can never not have confidence in my views on this topic, because I've done what people claim you're supposed to do to get with a woman, or at least get a date, just for the woman to not reciprocate. For our next part, we need repetition, so here's a reminder that the I word, according to Wikipedia, means members of an online subculture who define themselves as unable to find a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one. In my opinion, the closest definition I can find for the word, based on how I've seen it used, is man who criticizes women in any circumstance whatsoever. And unlike my detractors who create fan fiction and headcanon on me, I have proof to support my claims. In December, a female streamer named Sarah Daniels objected to one of the characters in a trailer for a video game screaming "get raped" as an insult. When people responded to her disagreeing with the sentiment that it was wrong to include this insult, she referred to those people as the I words, who would soon be making death threats. Now, it's important to remember that she's making a generalization, that every person who disagrees with her and responds to her is an involuntarily celibate man who at his worst is going to threaten her. Do you see how this word is derogatory when it's used by Sarah? Here's another example. Late last year, political commentator Jimmy Dore came under fire for criticizing Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for not using what he perceived as her leverage to get a floor vote on single-payer health care. He was called the I word on Twitter, and here's a screenshot to prove that. Remember, the I word means involuntarily celibate, but they're calling Dore a man who is married and has his wife in his videos with him to boot, a term that's supposed to mean men who are single and don't want to be. And I picked this screenshot because the user who called Dore this was confronted over the fact that he was not involuntarily celibate in the least. And this person moved the goalpost by talking about Dore's lifestyle and catering to men who were. I don't know how someone who's apparently never met Dore knows his lifestyle. So you've now been presented with proof that people will refer to men by this term when they are criticizing a woman. But what if this term is also used to describe men who are on the side of a woman? Gina Carano was fired last month from Lucasfilm after months of making comments on social media that were deemed offensive. While I don't agree with pretty much any position she espoused in this period, I thought it was wrong for her to be let go of for her computer commentary, and I wasn't alone in having that position. I have several screenshots where men who are either speaking positively or in favor of Gina are referred to as the I word by her detractors. I particularly like the one on the screen because the man, Dustin, is being called involuntarily celibate while being married with children. And we could sit here all day and talk about how this word gets thrown around like it's candy. But do you realize now how far the term has gone from its original meaning? Nothing about defending Gina is conducive to the definitions of this word. Men who are the I word, according to computer clowns, are supposed to hate women and be happy whenever anything bad happens to them. They're not supposed to be upset when one gets fired and then subsequently boycott the company by canceling their subscriptions to its streaming service. So now this word has gone from men who can't get a relationship that are part of a subculture to men who can't get a relationship to men who criticize women to men who defend a woman when they believe she is unfairly fired. The N-word is a racial slur. I would call the I-word a romance slur, and I'll elaborate. People, no matter how nasty they are to one man in particular, know the ridiculous difficulty many modern men are facing when it comes to either getting a partner or a date. And because they lack nuance, they have to convince themselves that men who have an opinion opposite of their own are therefore considered undesirable to all women, which is very sexist to believe because these people are asserting that all of them like the same kind of man. And they can't just disagree with what you are saying. They have to use your sexuality as a weapon. Contrast this with the N-word. When you say or do something another person doesn't like, they might refer to you as a racial slur, even if what you are talking about has nothing to do with your ethnicity. And you have some black people who call themselves the N-word and some men with the romance plot tumor who call themselves the I-word. But my point is, both of these terms are used in disparaging ways towards people. And at this point, I've shown you screenshot after screenshot of the I-word being used to disparage people. Is it really any wonder why I would not want to be called a term that I can prove people believe is a bad thing? So I'll concede that people who identify as I-words have similar talking points to myself, but I have always operated as a singular entity, being a content creator who talks about this sometimes, and no group should own a monopoly on an opinion. And this word has no meaning, with some people saying simply getting rejected makes you a part of this team. I posed this question earlier. Did I supposedly become an I-word in 2011 when I was rejected for the first time by a classmate? Or are there a certain number of times this has to occur for you to be recruited without your consent? This is the only group I've ever seen where your membership is hinged on someone else's decision. And I've shown proof in this video that you would still get called this term, even if you're married. As long as you disagree with a woman or agree with one in the Gina Carano saga's case, you're called this word. So you're either called this word just because you're single and don't want to be, even if you've never identified with the subculture or group, or you're called this word because you criticize women for anything, even if you have a partner or are married while making these critiques. So either way, you just can't win.